Welcome back to the Reading and Writing Podcast. My guest today is Asya Semenovich, author of the science fiction novel Fire of the Dark Triad, that has been nominated for the prestigious British Science Fiction Award for Best Novel. Asya, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. And I'm very glad to be here today. And I'm very honored to speak to you.
Great. I'm honored too. Well, if someone listening hasn't yet heard about your debut novel, Fire of the Dark Triad, how would you describe the novel?
My answer is going to be a little bit convoluted in a sense, but it has a good reason why. When I started writing this novel, I really wanted to say everything which I had in my head. It was literally every single thing which bothered me, which worried me, which concerned me for many, many years. I wanted to talk about nature of creativity. I wanted to talk about dangers of genetic engineering. I wanted to talk about totalitarian regime and how creativity coexists in totalitarian regimes. So there were lots of themes which were coming into one place, but until I came up with a plot, it was just kind of fragmented pieces of in my head. And then there was a plot which once I woke up and I had it in my head. And then I realized that this story is going to be about Earth, which decided to get rid of bad traits of human personality. There is three personality traits which form so-called the Dark Triad. And it's a real psychological term. It was introduced in 2002, and it's been extremely heavily researched in scientific literature. If you just Google the Dark Triad, you will see how many scientific references and then how many peer-reviewed articles are out there. So it's not, as I initially thought, when I heard the term in the very beginning, I was thinking, oh, it's some kind of like science fiction or fantasy. Turned out, no, that's actually a real thing. It's a personality which formed by the three separate but overlapping traits, which is again psychopathy, Machiavellism, and narcissism. And we all heard about them before, but what I didn't know, that the three personality traits, they have something in common. And they all are a result of so-called fast life strategy. There is about 1% of people who have this personality trait. And those people are different. They wired differently. And if you think about characters in movies and in books like James Bond on Scarlett O'Hara, you could see that James Bond and Scarlett O'Hara are somewhat different from normal people. They're more intense, they're more egotistic, they're more selfish, but they're also charming. They're also somebody who we can entertain ourselves watching their stories, and they're never boring. And then the whole plot came in my head that bad personality traits, which, by the way, are the manifested the best in those characters like James Bond and Scarlett O'Hara. You can think how all two of them fit the three psychological sides of psychological profile. Suppose we want to get rid of those traits, because people like that were dangerous in the past, they're dangerous now, they are selfish, they are intense, and they don't think about anything else except for their own interests. And then many years passes, and suddenly something happens with Earth. Starts losing something, and they don't know what exactly that quality which Earth is losing. And in the book, Earth creates a bunch of colonies, and it cuts connections with those colonies. So when Earth decides to get rid of that malevolent trait, the Dark Triad trait, the trait still stays on the colonies, but it's gone from Earth. And the colonies become more and more dangerous, and they develop their technology, and they start threatening Earth. And suddenly Earth realizes it cannot fight back. It doesn't have technology. It doesn't have, it hasn't made enough progress to stand to its own colonies, to people who now potentially want to invade. And they do some research, and they realize that part of the reason they can't compete anymore is because they lost that genetical trait, the one which was considered to be malevolent and the one which was erased from the human DNA. And the only way to make Earth competitive again is to get those traits back. And then we have a bunch of people. It's basically your James Bond types. It's people who are very intense, who are very inquisitive, who are manipulative. They put together this force which goes to the former colonies to look for people with those Dark Triad traits, and they want this force, which they call headhunters, to find those Dark Triad people, find them on those colonies, convince them to go to Earth, and then could not be coerced. They had to be convinced, and bring them back to Earth, and then Earth was using those people for future development. So it's extremely high-paced thriller. It's lots of people refer to it as a science fiction thriller, psycho thriller, because it has to do with one of the headhunter who is searching different colonies for the Dark Triads, and then he runs into all kinds of situations. He has to work in different societies, and post-apocalyptic society, in totalitarian society, and then he runs into issues. He runs into personal situations which he has to resolve, and that basically he needs to save some people he needs to save. So it's extremely high-paced story, and you can read it from both perspectives. You can read it as a James Bond thriller, or you can read it as a thinking about all these multiple layers of ideas and concerns, like the totalitarian regime, dangers of genetic engineering. So it's a multifaceted book, which could be, again, considered from many different points of view. I don't know if I thought I was a little bit long, and as
that's fine.
It became convoluted, but that's how that book actually, what it is. It's not convoluted in the end. It's
Sure.
The plot is very straightforward, but there were lots of ideas which came to that book.
Sure. And I'm curious, had you wanted to write fiction before you sat down to write this book? Because I know that you had a career on Wall Street, I think, and other jobs. Were you always writing fiction at the time, or what?
No,
what caused you to sit down and finally start writing Fire of the Dark Triad?
That's my first book. I've never written anything before, and as I just mentioned, answering the previous question. It was this desire, like one day I woke up and then I realized, there's so many things I wanted to tell people. And I wanted to, I don't like to get into, political discussions. And, I wanted to get my worldview, all my political thinking, all my experience in life, that was, again, multifaceted experience. It was growing up in Uzbekistan. It was coming to the United States. It was, which is actually two different worlds, right? You can consider it as a two, I would say, different planets in a sense, right? So,
Sure.
especially considering that I was coming from the Iron Curtain, my work in Wall Street, all those things had something which I had something to say. And then one day I woke up and I decided, you know what? There is this saying which I don't remember who said that, but I really like that. It's a little bit on a humorous side. The saying is, writing as well as being, you do it when you cannot hold it anymore.
Sure.
So that's what happened to me. I just couldn't hold it anymore one day.
So I'm curious, after writing the Fire of the Dark Triad, are you planning on writing more books? So have you started writing other novels?
Well, I didn't really plan to do that, but the first book ends essentially on a cliffhanger. So to some extent, I have to. I owe it to the readers, because almost everybody who read the book, the reviews I have, the reviews on publications on Amazon, on Reddit, I get people saying we want the sequel. But the most important thing is that there are other things which I really want to say now, and they didn't get into the first book for several reasons. First of all, it was not on top of my mind. And secondly, there were too much in the first book anyway. And the sequel which I'm writing right now, it's called Regressor. And it's about manipulation. Like, one of the personality traits of the Dark Triad is Machiavellism. And Machiavellism is ability to convince people, to make people do what that particular carrier of the dark personality want them to do without understanding that. And that sort of was the original push. And then I look around and there is this anger. It's almost rage, which I feel when I can see how easy it is to manipulate people, how easy it is for governments to manipulate people, for individuals to manipulate people, for media to manipulate people. And it makes me so angry. And I wanted to talk about that. And that's basically the main topic of the second book. It has to do with the same protagonist, with the same character as in Fire of the Dark Triad. And in fact, majority of the characters continue in the sequel, but there is a bit of a shift. It's, as I said, especially looking at the current events in the world, it became even more relevant, I would say, in the last several weeks when we're dealing with current events in Ukraine and Russia. And in fact, I'm deviating a little bit of your question, but I wanted to say that it's a little bit scary. And Fire of the Dark Triad almost exactly describes the events which are happening right now in Russia. And I read the speech of Vladimir Putin yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And then I opened my book this morning, and it almost like as if it's translation of his speech. There is I don't want to give away too much of a plot, but both what's happening and his specific speech, where it's literally written there, it's there. And actually more so, there are some events which happening in the book, which basically set the plot in motion. They also already happened.
So I guess he's a good example of the Dark Triad.
He's a good example. He's definitely a good triad, a dark triad, not a good triad.
Not a good one. Yeah.
Not a good one, yes. But if you think about it, he is absolutely, and I'm actually very impressed, Jeb, that you actually picked up on that, because he fits all three traits perfectly, like narcissism. Have you seen pictures of him shooting not shooting actually. Somebody shot the tiger, and I think he was
Right,
trying
yeah.
to tend to his wounds. His pictures riding on horses without like a shirt, right?
Right, yeah.
His the picture when he claims that he went to scuba diving, and he found some ancient, artifacts.
Right.
I mean, and it's all on the television. It's all out there. There is a Guardian article which says Putin man in action. And it's all narcissistic behavior. It's basically behavior to attract attention and to show how tough and cool a person is, and not just to keep it to himself, but actually to show it and make people perceive him as the best, strongest, charismatic person. Machiavellism, I don't think we need to talk much about that, right? I mean, not what's happening right now, but what's happening before, and how he was very carefully operated on both internal political scene and external political scene. That's a perfect example of Machiavellism and psychopathy. You have to have psychopathy to start what he's doing now, right?
Sure.
You have to be bold, you have to be impulsive, and you're dangerous.
Very true. Well, I'm curious, when you were working on Fire of the Dark Triad, what was the writing process like for you? Were you did you outline the novel before you started writing? Did you just dive into the narrative? How did that work?
It's Jeff. It's a good question. The first, I knew the major topics, the major themes which I wanted to cover, which I mentioned before. But then there was some kind of a plot, like a meta plot in my head, which I knew how it needs to start, how it needs to end. And then it's actually very interesting how I went about actually writing. Yes, there was an outline, but the outline was put together by the following. I'm the main character. I'm Nick, and I have to do something which is almost impossible to do, which is almost beyond human ability to do. So I have to go step by step. I have obstacles here and there. I have to go around them. That's why people who review the book, they always say that it's full of twists and turns. And I didn't try to write the book specifically to create twists and turns. It's like somebody wants something and there are a bunch of obstacles in between. How you go around these obstacles. And every step includes some kind of a twist, because you just cannot go straight. There are too many things which prevent you from achieving the goal. So if it makes sense, it's almost like I was living with the main character. I was going through beginning to the end of the plot, trying to make it happen.
Hey, this is Jeff from the Reading and Writing Podcast. Do you know what I love when I'm reading a great new book? A cup of tea. It's such a fun ritual. Settling down with a cup of tea and a new novel that I'm excited to read. Why not treat yourself to a cup of Plum Deluxe teas? Every loose leaf tea is hand blended, fresh, using only the best ingredients. From bold black teas to relaxing herbal blends, incredible dessert teas, or fun floral flavors, there's a delicious tea waiting for you. And I'm not making this up. They have a flavor of tea called Reading Nook Blend Black Tea. It's a tea that pairs perfectly with reading, writing, and relaxing. Plum Deluxe is a family-owned business, and they have one of the best selections of delicious, flavorful herbal teas as well as bold black tea flavors. Visit plumdeluxe.com/listen and use the promo code RWP to save 12% on your first order. Tea also makes a great gift. That's plumdeluxe.com/RWP untitled.com/listen and use the promo code RWP. There's nothing better than enjoying a great cup of tea with a good book. And now you can get your great tea from plumdeluxe.com.
Why choose proven quality sleep from Sleep Number? Because our Sleep Number 360 smart bed is really smart. It senses your movement and automatically adjusts to help keep you both comfortable. Plus, it's temperature balancing so you stay cool. It's even smart enough to know exactly how long, how well, and when you slept, and to help you get almost 30 minutes more restful sleep per night. Sleep Number takes care of the science. All you have to do is sleep. Save $1,000 on the Sleep Number 360 Special Edition Smart Bed Queen, now only $19.99, plus free premium home delivery when you add a base. Ends Monday. To learn more, go to sleepnumber.com.
That's great. Well, what writing advice would you offer for those who are writing their own stories or novels?
It's a very tricky question, Jeff, and it's a little bit hard for me to speak with authority because it's my first book, and I had very specific ways how I dealt with many things, but I have a couple of advice. First of all, one thing which I would like to get out of the way is like lots of people are saying, oh, you need dedication or you need discipline. I'm not going to say any of that. You know, I'm not a disciplined person, and I'm not a person who you can say extremely dedicated. I was obsessed about that book. I was getting up every morning, and especially when I was working still on Wall Street, and I was getting up at 4:00 every morning, and my hands were like literally shaking. That I have like 3-4 hours to write before I need to start getting for my work day. And I was doing it every day for whatever number of months, years I wrote that book. Every single day was starting with me waking up and like my hands shaking until I would sit down at the computer and start writing. So if you don't have this obsession, I don't know what they say. I mean, you asked advice. It's not really an advice. It's more like observation that if you have the obsession, then it's going to work. If you don't have the obsession, if you have to make yourself right, I don't know how that would work. But again, as I said, it's my personal experience. And another thing which I potentially think may be helpful for people, you've heard about things, writer's block, right? And I've heard about that before I started writing. And I realized that the way it works for me, I wake up in the morning and I start writing, and it just doesn't go anywhere. I'm sitting in front of the computer, I'm staring at it, nothing's come out. The head is completely empty. There is a block, and what do I do about it? And then you start panicking. And then you kept thinking about the book, and it's like in the back of your head, it's in your subconscious. And one day you just realize, you know why you couldn't write it? Because you put yourself in a corner. You wanted one of your characters to do something which this character simply cannot do the way you constructed this particular character. This personality is not going to do that. And you were trying to force something very unnatural into the plot, and that's it was falling apart.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I would say that instead of panicking why you're having writer's block, why you cannot write, just give it time, think about it, let it sit, let it percolate. And then, again, at least in my case, one day it would become clear why you couldn't write. It's not because you lost it. It's not because you lost ability, not because you lost talent. It's because you didn't think through some of the most important pieces. And if you continue, it's almost like preservation instinct. You don't want to go into direction and waste your time and effort where it's not going to work anyway. It's going to fall flat.
Sure, that makes sense.
That's probably my main advice, which I would consider potentially useful for somebody.
That's great. Well, what novels have you read recently that you enjoyed?
I've been reading a lot of science fiction recently, and when you said new novel, do you mean like new for me or recently published?
or new to you. I mean, it's fine.
Okay, so I've been going through lots of literature, which I potentially, some of them I read before, and I wanted to read sequels. Like, for example, I really like Terry Pratchett. He's one of my favorite sci-fi writer. And when I feel bad or somehow just need something light and something with a beautiful humor, I just go back to his books. One of the latest books which I read, it's called Maurice, and he's sorry, Jeff, I
It's okay.
can't remember it is a long name. It was actually written as a children's book, and I realized how deep it is and how many layers, again, of philosophy and social thinking he put into this book. And that was my last Terry Pratchett book, which I really appreciated. And in terms of non-science fiction literature, I've been reading, again, more like classics. I reread Bulgakov. And the reason Bulgakov is one of my favorite writers to whom I keep going back over and over again is because he is at least trying, I mean, I was trying to do at least what he was doing, to talk about the same topics, the same eternal topics. And one of my favorite books is Master Margarita, which again, I keep coming back and rereading, and I did it recently. The epigraph to my book is actually from Master Margarita, and it's Satan is speaking. And again, we're talking Satan, we're talking devil, which is evil, which is your Dark Triad. And the epigraph of epigraph on my book, he's saying essentially, don't get rid of evil because you don't know what else you're going to get rid of in the process. You will destroy living creatures and objects, which are not evil, if you try to specifically target evil and get rid of everyday's life. So I would say that I've been coming to classic recently a lot. Nabokov and his Lolita, it's one of my favorite books. And again, I reread it recently because of the language, because of this beauty of Nabokov's way of writing. So that's, I would say, the latest. So I've been mostly rereading classics and my favorite writers rather than picking up something which came up recently.
Sure. Well, where can people find you online if they'd like to learn more about you and your novel, Fire of the Dark Triad?
I would say that the standard answer would be, an easy answer would be to go to my website, which is called darktriadbooks.com. And it's specifically Dark Triad Books because at this point, I already knew that I'm going to be writing sequel. So it's a website which is providing up-to-date information and gives a description of that Dark Triad phenomenon. And so that's kind of would be the main obvious place. I would say that following me on Goodreads or Amazon would be a good way to see what's coming out. Like, for example, I'm working on audiobook right now because I've heard from many, many people that they actually would really like to read the book, but they don't have time, and they would really appreciate the audiobook version. So that's another thing which I'm doing. And for example, information when it's going to be available, it will be on Goodreads, and it's going to be on Amazon, and it's going to be on my website. But I would like to mention something else. I've been very much Reddit person. I don't have my personal profiles or Instagram or Facebook. And I'm basically shying of the social media, which makes you kind of showcast your life non-anonymously.
Sure.
And Reddit was my refuge because it's anonymous. And it became non-anonymous only about a month ago when I actually mentioned my book. Before, it was just a handle. And I put my other work there. I make memes. I make surreal memes. I do some photography. I sometimes put quotes of my favorite authors. So it's completely different and has nothing to do with the book. I kept it separate on purpose. But I think it's rather interesting to follow me through that because it's I have 500 plus karma in a little bit more than 2 years, which is a lot for Reddit.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't post very often. So my posts actually get, pretty good upvote rate. And so the reason I'm saying it because it's actually not boring. It's based on the anonymous feedback. It's entertaining. So if you go to my website, you will see my handle on Reddit, and that would be another way to see where I am up to.
That's great. I love Reddit myself. Great. Well,
Reddit was amazing. It was amazing. It gave me so much feedback. I posted after I got that nomination for British Science Foundation. I posted about it on r/science fiction, r/cyberpunk. And I got such an overwhelming amount of feedback and the conversations I had there. It was just amazing. And it's all completely anonymous, which made me feel good because it made me think, those people, they're saying whatever they want to say. They don't censor themselves and they still interested. They still like the book.
That's great. Well, again, we've been speaking with Asya Semenovich, author of the science fiction novel Fire of the Dark Triad that has been nominated for the prestigious British Science Fiction Award for Best Novel. And the novel is available now, so go buy a copy. And thanks for doing this interview.
Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. Great.
Without noticing me, Ramir walked straight to the counter and punched some sequence on its surface. A small round bottle popped up from underneath. He unscrewed its top section, converting it into a glass, and took several hurried gulps. Only after that did he glance at the room. I put down the tablet, raised my hand in greeting, and he slowly approached. He looked completely different than on stage. The light in his eyes was gone, and so was the aura of desperate energy. His face had a haunted expression, and the glass in his hand was trembling. "Why don't you join me?" I pretended to be oblivious about his condition. He pulled a chair to my table and sat down. It seemed that he was glad to see another living soul. I thought that things were unfolding quite nicely. "How are you?" My question sounded almost mocking, but he didn't seem to care. He was sufficiently drunk. "Yeah." He looked around as if determining the degree of hostility of various objects. "It hurts. The lights are too bright. If they would just turn down the lights, it would be much easier." He took several more gulps, and the muscles in his face relaxed slightly. I watched, pondering my next step. Even though it was unethical to exploit his current state, there was nothing technically wrong with it, and his shaky grasp on reality could be very useful for my first move. "I am from Earth." He didn't seem to hear. "We're not aggressive," I continued, observing his reaction. "We don't plan to invade. Your news is made up." He contemplated me in the most focused manner he could muster and nodded. "No doubt, but these—" he waved his hand in the air. "This place has official surveillance. You aren't cautious enough to be a spy, I'm afraid. Very funny of you, though." I passed him the news tablet. "Take a look." He shrugged and took it in his hands. "Kier, show him views from the security cameras," I said. The screen flashed, and Ramir's expression changed. He put the tablet on the table carefully, as if it was about to explode in his face. Then he pulled his chair away from me, and his images projected on the newsletter in different angles. And in each of them, my chair was empty. A light panic appeared in his eyes. "Who is Kier?" he asked and nervously looked around the room. And this, he pointed to the screen, this can't do that. He started to slowly get up, not taking his eyes away from my face. Now I needed to act quickly. I can do more than that, I said, nodding towards the tablet. Ramir was backing away from me. Your depression, anxiety, the dark fog in your brain, your insomnia, the timing was critical. I can make it all go away. I guessed correctly. Ramir stopped. And the headache, he whispered almost inaudibly. Right, I nodded, and the headache. How quickly? He was in my biotransmission range. Kier, give him the basic psychoanalgesic, I ordered. Ramir's posture shifted as if a loose spring inside his body changed, now suddenly tight and stable. It was very interesting to watch. I don't believe in talking to people in pain, I said. I needed your mind back. It will wear off by tomorrow, though. I can't cure you. It's not my specialty. His eyes were alert and clear and incredulous. It just let go, all of it. He passed his hand across his forehead. How? I didn't answer, waiting for him to put it all together. When he did, he stepped back again. Really, Earth? I smiled reassuringly. Ramir, we want nothing from Beta Blue at large. It doesn't have anything we care about. I'm here because of you. I might offer you something that you find interesting. He processed that for a moment. Well, whatever you did, he said, touching his forehead again, I suppose you could have killed me if you wanted. I continued to hold my reassuring smile. Kier was indeed capable of permanently shutting down a human brain. All headhunters' implants had this function, as a last resort in self-defense situations. Fortunately, I had never had to use it. But you didn't, he continued. What do you want? He was studying me with intense curiosity. He didn't seem afraid. Maybe nothing. I need to find out, and then I might make you an offer. To find out if you're special. Surprisingly, he didn't look intrigued. Why do you care? I'll explain later. For now, I need you to wear this to run my test. It won't take long. I pulled the silver mask with the psychometric device from my pocket and placed it on the table. It gleamed in the dim light of the room. Ramir gave it a thoughtful look, then shrugged, sat down, and put it on. I watched as he sat very still, his body frozen in a program-induced trance, his face looking like a blind sculpture. Kier was monitoring all of the room's entrances, and all was well. Everyone was still asleep. After several minutes, the test result displayed in the center of my vision, and I mentally congratulated myself. Not only was Ramir's score above the necessary cutoff, it was also the highest I had ever seen. I multiplied it by the Beta Blue difficulty coefficient and thought that this time my luck was exceptional. Done, I said, and he took off the mask. What was that? He asked, shaking his head. The standard rule was to give him a break before going into detail, not to mention that people would start waking up soon. You passed, and I have a lot to offer you. I stood up, preparing to leave, but I have to go now. Wait, they always protested at this moment. You'll have a wonderful sleep, I told him before disappearing behind the door. See you soon.
Why choose proven quality sleep from Sleep Number? Because our Sleep Number 360 smart bed is really smart. It senses your movement and automatically adjusts to help keep you both comfortable. Plus, it's temperature balancing so you stay cool. It's even smart enough to know exactly how long, how well, and when you slept, and to help you get almost 30 minutes more restful sleep per night. Sleep Number takes care of the science. All you have to do is sleep. Save $1,000 on the Sleep Number 360 Special Edition Smart Bed Queen now only $19.99, plus free premium home delivery when you add a base. Ends Monday. To learn more, go to sleepnumber.com.
Target has Laundry Day covered because they offer a great selection of concentrated Tide Pods to help with all your laundry needs. Tide Pods clean, freshen, and help rejuvenate your clothes with odor fighters and stain removers. Did you know Tide Pods clean better than the leading liquid bargain detergent? Tide Pods are powerful enough to make your whites white and your brights bright, even in cold water. Just toss in 1 Tide Pod for small loads, 2 for medium, 3 for large. It's that easy. For great value and convenient pickup options, get Tide Pods today at Target.